Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole of 4th District of Oklahoma. This is another one of our regular congressional chats. I was thinking about this particular week, and I thought I would label it the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's talk about the good first. The fact that the Pfizer vaccine for COVID-19 was fully vetted and approved now by the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, I think is really good news for the country. We had every indication, of course, that it was not only safe but very effective. It had been approved for emergency use, but I know some people continue to have concerns about the vaccine. And so the fact that the FDA has now given it full approval is a good thing. And hopefully that will ease some people that have legitimate concerns and encourage them to take the vaccine. Let me again urge you to do that. Again, this is your choice. But we do know these things were effective. I was in the district the last 3 weeks before this week's congressional session. I visited with a lot of healthcare professionals, visited a number of hospitals and nursing homes. I can assure you that the management of all those institutions thinks this would make a huge difference. And we're certainly seeing overcrowded emergency rooms, overcrowded high intensive care units at hospitals, and COVID is the single driving force. And we're seeing a resurgence in Oklahoma because of the new Delta variant. So if you haven't gotten your vaccine, please seriously consider it. I think it's important for your safety and your health, and certainly for the health and well-being of your family, your friends, and your neighbors. So, but again, the fact that it's now FDA approved, I think hopefully will reassure people that had some concerns. Let's go now to the bad. And the bad is what Congress is doing the last couple of days. Quite frankly, we called back into an extraordinary special session. We don't have them very often in July because the Speaker is trying to lay the groundwork to move forward on some massive spending bills that I think are really bad policy. We do have a bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's supposed to be fully paid for. It's not. The Congressional Budget Office has already said that it will be at least $256 billion short of paying for itself. But it is a bipartisan bill. Now, neither Oklahoma senators voted for it when it was in the Senate, and we still have some concerns about it. But if it's placed on the floor, there's no doubt there will be enough Democratic and some Republican votes to pass it. But it's the manner in which it's being used that I think should be very disturbing. The Speaker has said that she will not put this on the floor until she has the votes to approve a much larger $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. That bill can be passed through the Senate on a simple majority vote. It is full of higher taxes, particularly higher corporate taxes, higher capital gains taxes, higher estate taxes. We don't know the specifics of it completely, although we do know it will probably allow middle class tax cuts to lapse, and so it'll be a tax increase for people that make less than $400,000 a year. But it's a massive expansion in the entitlement state. Some of these things sound good, and some of them will undoubtedly be popular. Universal pre-K education, free community college education. The problem is none of it's free. All of it's going to be expensive, and it's wrapped up with higher taxes, more regulation, and the Green New Deal agenda. So we'll see how that goes. One thing that was extracted from the Speaker, she had to agree that would be voted, that the infrastructure package at least would be voted on by September 27th. My personal opinion is they probably won't get the reconciliation package done that soon. It's got to move through both the House and the Senate. A number of Democratic senators like Kirsten Sinema in Arizona and Joe Manchin in West Virginia have expressed doubts about that package, both in terms of the size of the tax increases and the size of the package itself. But they took the first step this week to fast track this, to go ahead and write it. But there'll be votes again later in September, perhaps well into October. And so we'll see that. The other thing that was moved legislatively this week through the House was a voting rights extension. I've normally voted for those things in the past. They've normally been bipartisan. All Americans should want to assure equal access to the ballot. But this particular one, frankly, federalizes the state election process and forces states like Oklahoma and other states to get federal approval before they can actually make their own elections more secure. That's a bad idea. The existing law allows any individual that thinks their voting rights have been abused or they've been discriminated against to sue the state or local authority that does that, or the federal government. The federal government itself has the right to take anybody to court that abuses the voting rights of people. This actually limits, for instance, things that states might want to do. Most of the American people, 81%, want voter identification presented when you vote. You do it when you cash a check, you do it when you get on an airplane, you do it for a lot of normal functions in society. This would make that illegal in every state in the union. So there's lots of prohibitions here that I think people that want control of their elections at the state and local level would object to. And so I suspect while it will pass the House, I'm not convinced it will pass the Senate, but pass the House it did this week. Now let's go to the truly ugly, and that's what's happening in Afghanistan. So I don't want to make any excuses about it. I think this is a colossal defeat for the United States of America, a colossal humiliation. A lot of people wanted to exit Afghanistan. The majority of people, that was not an opinion I shared. I thought we had gotten a situation where for a relatively small number of troops, a few thousand, and complete air control, we had stabilized the situation in Afghanistan. Frankly, we unstabilized it when President Biden made the decision to pull out American forces and cut back on American support, make it tougher to give the Afghan army the air support that it had become dependent upon. And what we saw was a collapse. And the people taking over are not friends of the United States. The Taliban are the people that gave refuge to Osama bin Laden, allowed him to use their territory to attack us. They are closely aligned with Al-Qaeda, with ISIS, with other terrorist groups. The fall of Afghanistan is being celebrated as an enormous victory over the United States by terrorist groups, and those terrorist groups will use Afghan soil to spread their hateful ideology and frankly to plan violent attacks on their targets, one of which is the United States of America. In addition, there are 38 million Afghans. Many of them are friends. A lot of them fought with us for many years, and a lot of them worked with American forces directly as interpreters and contractors. Those people are at risk, and they're in danger. Finally, the whole execution of the withdrawal, you could be for withdrawing from Afghanistan, but I've met almost no one who can defend how this has been done. We took out the military before we took out all Americans. That was a huge mistake. We turned over vital facilities like Bagram Air Force Base prematurely. We left hundreds of millions of dollars of American military equipment behind. It's the most botched, inept, incompetent operation I've seen in modern American military history. The tragedy is that our intelligence and military officials warned President Biden that this was what was going to happen. He dismissed those warnings. He's always wanted to pull out of Afghanistan. Frankly, he didn't support the mission which President Obama okayed to take out Osama bin Laden. So I think this record is one that does not stand up well over the course of his career. And this decision, which he continues to trumpet as the right decision, is unquestionably an enormous defeat and setback for the United States. I can assure you that our enemies are exploiting it all over the world. The Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans, the Iranians. I can also assure you that our friends wonder about our credibility. If we can pull out this quickly over a place where we fought for 20 years and established friends and allies, then frankly, some of them are going to wonder about us. And we did not do this in a coordinated fashion. You have to remember, at the time we announced that we were going to pull out, we actually had more NATO troops in Afghanistan than American troops. And they were an integral part of the operation. Those forces have been endangered. Their citizens have been endangered. Again, you're going to hear a lot of spinning out of the White House, but I would just advise you turn on your television and see if the scenes that you see frighten people at airports of Taliban's surrounding an American position and not allowing Americans to get through in some cases, or telling us we have to be out by August 31st, whether all our citizens are out or not. If that strikes you as an acceptable way to exit Afghanistan. You know, I serve in a body in the House of Representatives that has a lot of Afghan war and Iraq war veterans in it on both sides of the aisle. And certainly a lot of good Democrats that generally support the president on most things. I've found almost no one that served in those series on either side of the aisle that think this has been a well-done operation. Quite the opposite. They all tell you that they had interpreters or friends, and they wonder about the safety and security of those people. Many of them still are talking to people in Afghanistan who are frightened. The Taliban regime is going to be a medieval, fundamentalist Islamic regime. It's going to be oppressive to ethnic minorities and to women and girls. And anybody that thinks they've changed their stripes, I think, is going to be sadly disappointed. The fact that this could happen and happen on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, that we would turn over a country of 38 million people back to the same regime that was involved in 9/11 is just unbelievable to me. So it's clearly something I feel strongly about, but I want to assure you this, a lot of people wonder whether the effort was worth it. I think there's actually going to be some resistance in Afghanistan to the Taliban. That's partly due to us, but there's not going to be a lot of gratitude toward the United States from the people that mount that resistance. I also want to tell you, we bought 20 years worth of security. The most devastating terrorist attack in history, in our history, was launched from Afghanistan. And the fact that hasn't happened in 20 years is directly due to the sacrifice of the men and women who served on our behalf there. So if you know an Afghan veteran, please thank them for their service. It was valuable to the United States. They sacrificed greatly for us. We need to stand with them in this very difficult time. I know it's a tough time for a lot of people that serve there. It's just tough to watch your enemy, raise the flag over land that you fought and liberated, and now I think through political ineptitude are turning back over into the hands of our enemies. So again, some good things this week on the vaccine front. Not particularly happy with what happened in Washington, D.C., but I'm extraordinarily disappointed by what happened in Afghanistan and the fact that this administration, I think, basically handed over a country to our enemies and did so in a way that is embarrassing and harmful to the United States of America. So I think there'll be consequences from this decision, but we'll go forward. This is the greatest country in the world, but let's not kid ourselves that this was a good week for our friends all around the world, or for ourselves. And let's not kid ourselves that our enemies are doing anything other than enjoying the moment. But let's resolve to not let anything like this ever happen again in our country. With that, I look forward to visiting with you next week.